think critical thinking is so important to learn as a young person. I used to think the more answers I learn, the fewer problems I'll have. And as you probably realize, no, life is all about problems. It's whack-a-mole. One pops up. And so that's not a reflection of, it can be a reflection of bad decisions, but it can also just be a reflection of being alive. Like what does Jordan Peterson say? All of life is suffering, but the challenge is to find meaning within suffering. And so what I'm teaching my kids and those that work with me too is like, let's learn life skills that you can solve challenges and problems because they're inevitable.
That's correct.
Welcome to Under the Knife, the podcast where we cut into topics such as politics, life advice, and medicine, and we do this with the precision of a licensed orthopedic surgeon. I'm your host, Dr. Craig Greene, an orthopedic surgeon and elected public official. Verge Ausberry, welcome to Under the Knife. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Glad to be here.
So what, you and I go back, 30, 35 years?
About 30 years, Craig.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that when I was driving here, about when you were a football player at LSU and you were going to medical school. But I knew your father before I really knew you.
That's right.
When he was a state senator.
That's right.
And I've dealt with him on a lot of things. I was down at the Capitol with Mark Emmert and Scott Woodward, working at the president's office.
Let's back up a little bit. So LSU football, you were an LSU football star. What years were you there?
85 to 89.
Yep. I looked up to you, and I came in behind you. You, of course, were a big scholarship guy. I was a walk-on, but it still felt part of the family. And I think LSU football is still a family, don't you?
Yeah. Say that. My first semester at LSU, I was a walk-on.
Really?
Because I lost my scholarships, I was committed to somebody else and came back. So I was a walk-on. So I did understand where you were coming from.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was honored because, I think I showed up. I was 7th or 8th on the depth chart, and then I just kept grinding. I didn't work up to your level, but I got up to 2nd on the depth chart, and that was an accomplishment before I got hurt, and that led to my profession. So, it all works out. But I still, like Chad Loop and some of the other buddies from there were, that was my fraternity is what I tell people.
It's our fraternity, but you were
right.
part of that fraternity too. And players played in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, up and down. Those 3 draft picks we had last night, that's all part of the fraternity, those guys who wore that helmet.
Jaden had a good day, huh?
Had a great day.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for him, proud for him. He's just a great kid. He's a great human being, and that's what you can't. Those are 3 great guys that got drafted from LSU last night, and that's what we want to put out. Great people, not just good football players, but good people.
Right. Now, tell me, how's it changed from when we were there to now? I mean, a lot. We'll get into NIL and the portal and all, but there still seems to be this. Like Jaden is a fine human being. Joe Burrow, I'm on his board. What a great human being, and. Of course, Scott Woodward's a good friend of ours, both, and it seems like there's let's make good men or make good humans, and not just win.
I've been part of 7 SEC championship teams, 2 as a player, 5 as an administrator, and I've been part of 3 national championships in LSU's history. That's pretty good in LSU's history. In all those teams, you look back at those rosters, good people. And we found out that if we want to win, you have to have good people. We've been fortunate to win 5 national championships here in the last 5 years almost. And all those teams are good people. They get mistaken sometimes. They say some things out of turn sometimes. But
they're
you know
kids.
What? All the young women and young men we have, they're good people.
Right. Now, gymnastics, right?
Gymnastics national champion.
Yeah.
First time in 50 years.
Wow. Even with our prior coach, who's a legend herself. I mean,
and Dee Dee built that program. We give her all the respect. Those people. Dee Dee, Bro, Skip Burke. When you look at these programs where they are today, those are the ones who set the groundwork for us to have the facilities and the teams and the winning that we're doing right now.
And the current coaches stand on the shoulders of giants, really.
Correct.
Correct. So, take us from New Iberia to LSU. Now, you still have roots there.
Yes.
And take us from where were you going to go initially from New Iberia?
Really didn't know. Texas A&M was in there from high school. I played at New Iberia Senior High, very, very good high school. Wally Fraze was my head football coach. We had a great program. About 10 of us went to play on Division I football from that team. My parents, both educators. And my father passed away 2 years ago, 92 years old. So I know what you're going through at this time, this moment. And My prayers with you and your family.
I appreciate it.
And my mother's 89, and she worked 66 years in the school system in Iberia
Wow.
Parish, and one of the longest in the state in the history of the state of Louisiana.
Wow.
She's 89, and she's still moving and going and yelling at me still. I was the only child, so with a father, a principal, and a mother, assistant superintendent, it was pretty tough.
You
in
didn't
that
have a
house.
chance.
You didn't have a chance. No,
Yeah.
you didn't bring no not too many B's, and definitely not a C home. Okay?
Failure's not an option.
Yeah, and that conduct grade better always be good. So I was blessed to have two strong parents. I tell people, and parents that what made me who I am today.
Now take us from your LSU career. Of course, you shined as a star, and take us from there that led to your first job.
First, it's so funny when I start, bounce around, NFL, World Football League, those type of things. And came back, Mr. Jodine, I have a lot of respect for. He's the one who got me into business. He was doing a speaking engagement in Iberia one night. I'd finished playing. When you finish playing your last game, correct, you know it, but also you have a feeling of what's next. It's a very scary feeling. I'd done well, graduated early, was working on my master's degree. And Mr. Dean paid for me to complete my master's degree, and I was leaving.
What was your master's in?
Education Administration Supervision with a certification in Child Welfare and Development. So I was leaving.
Carrying on the legacy of your parents.
My parents, yeah, that's right. My undergrad was history and political science. Wow. I was thinking about law school. And then, Mr. Dean called me and said he had an opening in the Academic Center for Athletes, and would I mind staying? He was a GA for Bo Bonson and compliance.
Yep.
And he said, would you mind saying academics? I knew nothing about academics.
Right.
And I was a good student. I could help young people. And, it helped me touch a lot of lives. That was the most fulfilling job I had for 7.5 years. The guys like Kevin Falk, the Booger McFarlanes, the Brady James, the young men just on and on, the Nicky Savoy. Guys
You're probably
like
a father figure to a lot of
to
them.
a lot of these guys. And when we talk about that, that job was really rewarding to me. And all you great Chad.
Well, I remember when I was there, between you and Tommy Karam.
Dr. Karam, that's right.
There was this, you had to go to study hall, and
That's
then you
right.
had to make grades, and you had to get up and work out. And it created this discipline that goes on today for me.
Yeah, and as a player, you understand that. You don't understand as a player, but when you finish playing football, you understand what's out there, and that your degrees and your careers, what it means to you all, and what's going to carry you for the rest of your life.
That's right.
And so many of those young men I see today, they always say, Verge, thank you for staying on us. We didn't understand it then. We were mad with you, we were angry with you, and now all their children at LSU.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. All she makes all A's. It's like she didn't get it from you.
Right.
I always tease the guys about that. I say it must be her mother.
Right.
But it's blessed to see those young people come back and do so.
That's got to be. I was talking to Ben Bordelon, who's a teammate of mine, and now his son is there.
That's right.
And I think our sons are even friends somewhat, but to see the next generation of people coming through LSU.
Yeah, I have my sons there now.
Yep.
I have another son playing at Notre Dame. So I carry, like Odell Beckham Jr. It's so funny. He was born really. Odell Sr. and Heather, his mother, was a great athlete. In the athletic dorm.
Right.
I mean, I used to hold Odell when he was a little baby.
Right.
So it's amazing to see these kids now, these young men now, and young women now, grow up and to become who they've become.
Yeah. Well, and you've been a big part of that. Tell me first of all, I want to go back to, how'd you get from that into the political sphere? Because you're down at the legislature a lot. And you mentioned when my dad was a senator, you were down there. How did you get into the Mark Emmert, Scott Woodward legislative?
It started from my daddy, my father. My father pretty much touched every governor, from Edwin Edwards. You come on back to Mike Foster. Kathleen Blanco worked for my mother.
Wow.
Then I became friends, Bobby Jindal, general administration. I knew those people. Talk about our former governor, knew him very well. He was a legislator down there. You talk about our current governor. Our current governor, Jeff Landry's mother, worked for my dad. My dad was a principal in Louisville, Louisiana. So we had a relationship for a long period of time.
Right.
And then go back to John Bell. So I knew those governors. But I got there really with Mark Emmert and Scott Woodward. Scott was taking external relations, governmental relations for the president's office at the time, the chancellor's office at that time. And, Scott and I became good friends, jogging buddies. That's how we met, because he was a private lobbyist at the time. He had Chevron and a few other companies he was working with. And he said, one day we were jogging, say, what if I take the job at LSU, this job? And he told me about it, and I was so happy, ecstatic about, my friend coming, work at LSU with me, my buddy. And And he asked one day, once you come to the Capitol, he said, you know all these people. And I did know them all because I grew up in that kind of field with Bo Ackle, all those guys, you know, Sammy Nunez, all those old guys that I knew. And it was a fit.
Right.
And so I learned to do athletics and that, and it's two hats.
Yeah.
But I tell people.
And there's a Venn diagram where they cross.
That's right. Yeah. You know, you deal with 18, 19-years-olds, you deal with politicians.
Yeah. You never know what you might get.
Same level almost some days.
And they're battling too, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know what, Scott Woodward, I hope to have him on one time at one point. He and I owned that fishing camp together.
Yes.
And, what a gentleman and a scholar. And one of the things that really strikes me about him, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but I'll ask him a question about Scott. And within 1 minute or a minute and a half, he's somehow got me back talking about myself. Mm-hmm. He's very good about, not about shunning the spotlight from himself to other people. And what a great leader, huh?
Yeah, we're very similar. That's why we get along. You know, I understood. Skip Bertman taught me this here too. You know, it's about you work with a coach at his level. And I've been fortunate enough, Craig, to work with some of the best coaches in the business: Nick Saban, Skip Bertman, and now Kim Mulkey. You know, when you look at those three, there's about 7 or 8 coaches you could talk about. Belichick, Coach K, coach at Connecticut, and the women's basketball coach at Connecticut. There's very few, though, in that level. Okay?
Legends.
And when you work, I was fortunate to work with 3 of them. And Skip taught us, you know, how to work with coaches. You know, we're not your boss. You know, I go in every day. I'm here to help every student athlete be successful, every coach be successful, every team be successful. People I work with, people say, well, you know, I hate people called boss. You know, I hate that word. You know, no, I work with you.
Together.
I don't care if it's the person who, you know, cleaning the building, or the person who's, you know, taking notes downstairs, or the student workers, or anything. I tell them
we're on the same team.
We're on the same team and work together. So this thing of top high, you know, be heavy up top and looking down, we don't do that. You know, everybody, we have a job to do, we have a mission to do, and it's to make LSU great.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting about that. At my dad's celebration of life, I saw, you mentioned a mutual friend of ours, Bobby Jindal, and I said, yeah, there were guys that my dad was in the legislature with that were in different parties, right? My dad was a Democrat, became a Republican, but worked well with both sides. Well, a bunch of the guys that were Democrats came to his celebration of life, and I told Bobby, I said, yeah, even his political enemies are here. And he said, no, you know, they're not political enemies. They're political opponents that have a different viewpoint, but for the same goal, and that is to make Louisiana way better. And that was a good frame, because, you know, we can get lost into are we enemies here and there? But no. We have the same goal. We just have different ideas about how to get there. And what's your experience been with that, dealing with the legislature for so many years?
You know, enemies, you know, we're at war. You know, we're not in war.
No.
We're all on the same team. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, black or white, whatever you are, you know, sexuality, anything. You know, if you're an elected official, I tell young guys this: you represent everybody in your district, everybody in your state, no matter who they are. You represent them, and it's service. And I think that's what we got out of the part. We are elected officials to understand what service is. Like I said, Skip said, we worked at LSU, you park like the Walmart employees. They park in the back. And the Walmart, you can bring anything back, the customer, bring anything back to Walmart, you know what? They're right. Those don't disrespect you. And that's what I always tell people. We could disagree. I want you to disagree. I want you to challenge me. You know, I have a note on my desk, and I have a big X to it. It's always been done that way. I don't like to hear that.
No.
Tell me something new. Think outside the box. And you know what? It might not be the right time for that, but it's going to come a point in time where, you know what? That's a great idea.
Right.
So, no, you're a Republican, a Democrat. Hey, look, we have a mission. What's best?
Right.
And what's best for your constituents? And sometimes guys tell me, you know, Verge, I can't vote for that. It's not my constituents. Hey, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand that. I'm not going to force you to do anything, or die on a bill, or die on something that's not worth it. But if it's something to help everybody and help your constituents and help your state, let's try to move it forward. I don't care what party you're part of.
But you know what I'd say when I would speak for orthopedics, or when I would speak when I campaign, this young man, this young woman get married, and the first Thanksgiving they go to, she goes to cook a turkey or cook a ham, and she cuts the 2 ends off, puts it in the pot, puts it in the oven. And he said, why do you do that? And she said, that's the way my mama did it. He goes, any other reason? She said, no. So they go to the mom's house, same thing, cuts 2 ends off. And he said, why do you do it that way? Oh, that's the way my mom did it. So they go to the grandma's house and ask the grandma, so your daughter and your granddaughter both cut the ends off. And the only reason they do is because that's the way you did it. Mm-hmm. Why did you do it that way? And she goes, oh, baby, back then we didn't have pots big enough. And I say that to say if in orthopedic surgery or if in politics, if I ask somebody, why do we do that way? And if the only answer I get is that's the way we've always done it, I need a better reason than that. Right. And I want people to be critical of the way when I say this is the way we should do it, you should have a better answer for me than that's the way it's always been done. Yes. And so it comes from all spheres of life, really, Yeah,
Scott taught me something. When people come to him with problems, you say, great. You say, now tell me how we solve it.
Right. The people closest to the problems are usually the best one to solve.
That's right. We want you to solve the problems.
That's right.
You tell me what the problem is, and bottom line now, how we solve it, how we fix the problem.
Right. And, I think critical thinking is so important to learn as a young person. I used to think the more answers I learn, the fewer problems I'll have. And as you probably realize, no, life is all about problems. It's whack-a-mole. Mm-hmm. One pops up. And so that's not a reflection of, it can be a reflection of bad decisions, but it can also just be a reflection of being alive. Like what does Jordan Peterson say? All of life is suffering, but the challenge is to find meaning within suffering. And so what I'm teaching my kids and those that work with me too is like, let's learn life skills that you can solve challenges and problems because they're inevitable.
That's correct.
And so how does that work, like with these young men? Because a lot of pressures on these young athletes, right?
Yeah, Bill Ausberry taught me a lot. My first coach at LSU, and one of the best ever in the business. 4 Super Bowls, only undefeated team still to this day with the Miami Dolphins, the Shula teams. Silence sometimes and listening is the best thing. And when you're young, you want to be the one in the room that you know everything, and you want to show everybody you know everything. Right. I tell young people, just listen. Right. Listen to the conversation going in the room. In fact, when there's a lot of young people, young student athletes, they're talking, I always go to the one who's not saying anything and say, what do you think? And so teaching them that patience. In today's world, most of our kids, they microwave kids, we call them. Mm-hmm. Everything is done instantly. Video games, reset buttons. They don't know how to work through a problem, a situation, and go through the process. Mm-hmm. You just don't end up being orthopedic surgeon. You don't end up being the executive AD, or SHU. That takes a long process. It takes a lot of battle scars. Right. And they don't know the work and the effort that you have to put in to get there. And that's where we try to talk to this younger generation about your kids and my kids about it takes work. Nobody's going to give you anything. You don't expect anything. And, work hard. Put your head down, concentrate, focus, be the best you could be. But you got to earn it, though. Right. Respect is earned. It's not going to be given to you. No. Nothing can be given. So that's what you try to tell the young generation. Mm-hmm. Just like you compete in athletics, you compete in the classroom, you compete in everything you do. It's a competition. But compete well and friendly, not evil and not attacking.
That's right.
Help
respectfully.
People respectfully, yeah.
So I remember about that when my dad was in the Senate. So was Mark Morial, who's your brother-in-law, right?
My brother-in-law sure is.
And he went on to be the mayor of New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And and my dad, bless his heart, he's gone now. But I remember the Senate played the House maybe in a basketball game.
Still goes on.
And I want to say Mark was probably 35 or 40. I mean, he was clearly the best athlete out there.
No, he must have been bad.
But he went on from there to do great things, and that entire family has been very political.
Yeah. He's president of the National Urban League now.
That's right.
And he has a son graduating from Penn.
Really?
In College of Business, and we're going to his graduate. My kids are going to his graduation. Yeah. And his daughter's graduating here also from high school and going to Howard. Mm-hmm. And she's going to go in pre-med. So,
well, did he have one? I saw y'all at a function not long ago, and somebody's kid was going to Yale.
Yeah, that's my other niece.
Okay.
I have another niece. Yeah. She graduated from Yale.
Okay.
And she lives in Washington, D.C. right now. And her boyfriend is in law school at the time.
Taking over the world.
So they've done well. Proud of them. Have another nephew in New Orleans, and he's in school at Xavier, and he's also working in the restaurant business. Mm-hmm. He likes to cook, a chef. And I have my 2 boys, that's a great. So
speaking of your 2 sons, I want you to brag them on a little bit because we raised our sons together. Mm-hmm. We used to have sleepovers and all. And tell us where your kids are now and how proud and what they're doing.
My oldest at LSU, Austin. Austin went to Auburn, and there are a lot of coaching changes there. And Auburn's a great place. He loved the school. He loved it. But for his football career, he wanted to make the move somewhere, and he looked at a few schools. And I didn't get involved with it. I never got involved with their recruiting process.
Stay out of it.
I never wanted to say, "Daddy told me to do this," or "Daddy made me do this." So he wanted to come to LSU. And I said, okay, he liked what he saw. He liked the players. He felt comfortable with Coach Kelly and Coach Frank Wilson. I said, okay, you want to do that? Corey Raymond, I think, made a big part in his decision-making to come back. Blake Baker, who was here before, who recruited him. So I think he fit there.
Felt at home, too.
Majoring in finance, doing very well in school. And, his mother and I, we talk about that academics more than anything. Jaden. He's my child who, he branches out. He beats his own drum. Yeah. He's more like me than anything. He picked Notre Dame.
He's going to be a sophomore at Notre Dame?
He's going to be a redshirt freshman, but sophomore academically. He went early. He's one of the first to ever graduate from U-High early.
Okay.
He's the first.
And I didn't know you could redshirt at Notre Dame. I thought it's 4 years, but you can have a fifth year.
Yeah,
now?
they redshirt. Okay. They redshirt a lot now. After NIL and all the new age we in now, you better have a redshirt program. Right. Because everybody going to be kids leaving and transferring out. You're not going to have a team. But he's done very well. He played in 4 games. He played in the bowl game. He was able to redshirt, and he's backing up 3 seniors. Yeah. And 2 of those guys are going to the NFL. One came back for a 6th year. They haven't met the Rover splitting time with the first team, and he's a different guy. He's a very good football player. I don't like to brag on him. And he's at Notre Dame in the Mendoza College of Business with a 3.0 GPA.
Wow. Let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about NIL and the portal. That was a Supreme Court decision, I think, that kicked all that off. And now we've heard chatter from Nick Saban about how that's got to be reined in a little bit. Where is that currently? Where do you think it's heading? And also talk a little bit about recruiting. I heard now coaches are recruiting the portal just as much, if not more, than they're recruiting high schools.
And that we could spend a day on that. We lost in the U.S. Supreme Court. That was the Alston case, 9-0. It came out of California, UCLA, and it's like building an airplane while you're flying, Craig. A lot of things we still don't know. There's a lot of major lawsuits out there now, the House lawsuit, the Hubert lawsuit, those lawsuits about where this thing going to go with profit sharing now, things like that. Do student athletes become employees? Do the collectors go away and we end up paying them? So there's a lot of things there, a lot of answers not answered yet. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think Congress is going to fix this problem. I think it's going to be in the court system. I think we're going to have to make some decisions. We lost public perception. I tell people, don't blame the kids and the young people. I think it's the adults. We put the business model kind of where it is. Coaches getting paid the salaries they're getting paid and those type of things. And I think the public perception, we didn't tell our story. And we lost public perception. Yeah. We didn't tell what you were athlete.
Can you get that back?
I think the money's too big right now. I think the money's too big, and people look at coaches' salaries around the country and saying, "Well, what about the kids, the young people?" Right. And I thought it is wrong, Craig, to tell someone that you own their rights. Right. You can't. your name, your image, and your likeness, the university owns. Right. That's not right. No other profession in the world that works that way.
And look, I'm just a novice, but I'm excited to see. I think the Heisman is contemplating giving Reggie his trophy back.
They did. They already did.
They already did.
Got his trophy back, and they did a ceremony yesterday. I think I saw it on TV. Yeah, he deserved it. And a lot of things would be different now.
Even the Johnny Manziel special on Netflix was fantastic. I don't know if you got to see it.
I got to watch that.
It would be totally different now.
Got to watch that. And those kids, you generate that much money for an institution, you should get it back. But at the same time, Craig, we didn't tell our story. Right. And our story was what else we do for, like you said, the Academic Center for Athletes. We spend about $3 to $4 million for tutors and people like that to help you get a degree. Sports medicine. You talked about Jack Marucci and Shelley Mullenexon when you were there. Those people who help you in medically and how much we spend in those areas for our athletes. We don't talk about the training you do, about the strength coaches, the weight coaches. We didn't talk about the food, how much we feed you.
We had steak night every Wednesday night.
Yeah, we never talked about that story. What all we do for the student athlete, mental health issues, things of that nature, and summer jobs. And we didn't tell that story. So we kind of hid that story. So public perception didn't see it. So everybody thought we were just taking advantage of these athletes. And, I think, I don't think they took advantage of us. You and I got our degrees and we did well.
Well, I don't know about you, but every interview I went on, that was one of the first things that came up from the resume. So and then I tell this story. There's a guy he's the chairman of orthopedics in Jackson, Mississippi. He and I were fellows together in Seattle, and we were he was going through one night. He couldn't go to dinner. We were teaching a course. I said, why not? He said, I've got to go through some applicants. And these are all doctors wanting to become orthopedic surgeons. And he has 300 applicants, and he's got to cull it down to 30. They interview 30, and they take 3. I said, well, how do you go from 300 to 30? And he never played college sports, but he said this was his answer. He said, the first thing I look for in an application of 300 doctors is did any of them play any college sports? And he said, here's why. It's because at a point in life where they could have chosen to do less, they chose to do more. Get up at 5 in the morning, go to study hall late at night, be accountable to somebody. And that's the kind of person we're looking for as a team player here. And I found that interesting. I mean, never made $1 off of sports, but it came up on every interview, and the things that I learned along the way fed into what I do today.
You know, it shows you were part of a team. That's why what he really wanted to say, because right now the top MBA and the top programs in the United States, the MBA program, higher education, the Harvards, the Yales, the Penns, the Wharton School of Business, the Mendoza School. When you look at your resume, look at your application, they want to see what did you do outside of academics. Just not, that's the holistic approach we talk about. It's just not a 4.5 GPA and a 36 ACT,
right,
but how you get along with people, how you communicate with people, how you talk. Could you be part of a team? Or you just got to be in the office by yourself with your head down and you can't communicate with others. Right. You know, the MBA programs now have changed that model in all the higher ed institutions in the country.
Well, what's that saying? And I get it mixed up sometimes. I need the best 11 and not the 11 best.
That's correct.
And I think Michael Jordan was great at that, right? He made everybody around him better.
You're right.
And that's our goals, right? Tell me this. To the young people, do you remember you and I were finishing up at LSU? And look at how successful you've become. What would you tell the 20-year-old version of yourself or the 25-year-old version of yourself?
You know, people ask that question all the time. I have to think about it a little bit. And I would tell them to, I'd probably keep the same things I did, I would do it. Patience, just judgments on some issues. But you're young, you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know. I think I'll prepare myself better, become a better reader.
Right.
And read things and knowledge, get more into your spiritual faith that you have to do.
That was going to be my next question. You know, you and I are both, faith is a big part of our life. I appreciate the daily devotional that you sent to me. Tell us about how faith spawned in your life and how that's taken you along.
Ever since I was growing up, my grandparents took me to church. You know, I went to Catholic school in kindergarten, Catholic High in New Iberia, and then went to New Iberia Freshman High, my dad's school, the public schools. But faith was always a part of it, a praying family. Like I said, my parents, my grandparents, give it to my kids and to my family. You know, we pray. And I tell people, you know, Craig, I'm a Christian and I'm a sinner. I heard Kim Mulkey said so
in that order.
I tell people, you know, life's not perfect.
No.
And I don't preach. I don't judge anybody. I don't do that. I tell everybody, you know, I tell people that I say, you know, we all got to have our own judgment day. And nobody's going to be there with us. And so my thing is not to preach and judge a person. I tell people, you know, hey, this is what's there for you. You know, I keep a Bible on my desk. I don't have to have, you know, 10 Commandments on the wall or anything like that. The Bible's on my desk. I don't have to push it on anybody. So, you know, walk in my office, you know, Verge probably is a Christian.
Yeah.
You know, and that's who I am, right. and that's how I live.
Look, one last question for you, and we'll land the plane here. If you had to give 2 pieces of advice, say to your sons or to the athletes that are coming through, not for this year, but for life, what would be 2 things, 2 or 3, what would you say, hey, this is from the book of First Verge?
You know, I tell all young people, I said, you need to believe in something, your faith. I don't care what religion it is, not religion, your faith.
Faith.
You have to have something to go to, because there's going to be ups and downs in your life and your career. I say everything is not smooth. You think I got here just being a smooth ride. It's not that way. And nobody at the top. And also, you know, make sure that you have the right team around you. Because the more you move up, it's very lonely at the top, I tell people. And you got to make sure that the team around you, your team's going to be your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your family members, your best friends, your roommates, your fraternity brothers, whoever it is, that team, a small hand of people, that's your team. And your team got to tell you things at times that you don't like to hear.
You got a booger.
That's right. Yeah. And your team, if your team members or your team that you think your executive team, I call it, let you go out the house with a boogie in your nose or your pants split and don't tell you anything, I don't tell you what's right, then that's a problem. They need to be the ones who critique you and tell you, you know what, Verge, that's not the right decision, that's a bad decision, or, you know, Verge, I think you would do that. And if you can't take that type of criticism from that team member, then, you know, something's not right. And you want that.
Yeah.
You want that team member to be tough on you and tell you the truth.
And look out for your blind spots.
That's right, correct.
One last question. What does Verge do for fun?
You know, Verge got some golf clubs they got to start using. I got them made the other day. I need to do that. You know, I like to work out.
Yeah.
You know, I love yoga.
Yeah.
I love, you know,
You've
the
kept in
stadiums this
shape.
morning, try to stay in some shape. You know, when friends go hunting, sometimes I'm hunting. I really enjoy fishing. I got to do more of it, and that's what I'm trying to do now. Since the kids are out the house, I'm an empty nester. I like to travel. You know, we're taking a lot of trips, so we'll see where I'm gonna go and visit people and visit things, and just get out sometimes and go visit.
Well, I got to give you props because, you know, I mentioned my dad passed, you knew that, but his motto was life's about relationships. And I would say, I would brag on you that ever since I've known you, back from college all the way to now, you are great at relationships, maintaining them, building them, forming them. My brother Jason, who you know well, he picks on me because he said, Craig, every year you have a friend of the year. It's like a new person I bring into my life. I'm like, what's wrong with that? But you do a really good job of relationships, so keep that up. And thank you for including me in that circle.
Yeah, Craig, it's so funny. Every time I'm taking long drives, I just go through my phone, and somebody I hadn't talked to in a while,
Connect.
just give them a call.
Yeah.
How you doing? How you
Thinking
doing?
about you.
Yeah, thinking about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you never know. But sometimes you try to pick up that phone, and that person has passed away. You're like, wow, I wish I would have called him 2 weeks ago. I know he was in that type of shape at the time. So I've learned to do that in my car when I'm taking long rides or in the airport. Just call people and check on them. So
5 minutes.
If I say, how you doing?
Right.
Just call and check on you, how the family, how the wife.
Right.
And they start talking about themselves.
I don't need anything.
I don't need anything from you,
Yeah.
no. And that's what I've learned to do at this point in my life.
Well, look, you're a builder of young men and women. You're an anchor in this community, and we're grateful to have you, and thank you for being a friend. Thanks for being on the show.
I enjoyed it, Craig.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon.
Brother. Thank you,
Take
brother.
care.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us today, and a big thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to this surgical exploration of politics, healthcare, and life. I've been your host, Dr. Craig Greene. Remember to stay informed, stay sharp, and join us next time to see which of life's topics we'll dissect under the knife.